Did I see improvements with the St. Louis Blues throughout the month of November? Let's talk about it.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I want to talk to you about the month of November because this has been quite a month for the Blues. The Blues finally got back-to-back wins, consecutive wins, which they haven't been able to do since the beginning, middle-ish of October. So we're going to talk about that. I'm also going to play you an exclusive conversation that I had with Gil from the Locked On NHL podcast, where I kind of discuss different things with the Blues, which includes, stability, consistency, defense, goaltending issues, and so much more. So we have a lot to get to on today's episode with this recap, as well as the conversation with Gil a couple weeks ago. So it was about like a midway point conversation with the Blues. And I find that conversation actually very interesting with all things said, just due to the fact of the Blues were in a little bit of a different place back then. But let's talk right now about the St. Louis Blues, right? Because it is now finally almost December, and I hate that 2025 is almost coming to an end. Seems a little bit weird, but hey, you know what? Time goes by. And right now, when it comes to the Blues, they are 9, 10, and 7 with 25 points after 26 games on a 2-game win streak, which again, very good if you ask me, just because we all know that the Blues have struggled tremendously throughout the season so far. 26 games in this season, and I feel like the Blues really never got on the right path. But luckily for St. Louis, things are kind of heading in the right direction. All right, so let's talk about this month overall and kind of recap this month, because I want to do this every month where we truly recap each month, the good, the bad, the ugly, and so much more. So one of the big things this month happened where the St. Louis Blues had trades for Calle Rosen, as he is now on the T-Birds again, as he used to be on the T-Birds. So that was like the big, like blockbuster kind of move that happened this month. Dvorsky, by the way, scored his first goal this month. So again, it only took him 5 NHL games to score his first goal, his first NHL career goal. So that was a big one. We also have the Jordan Binnington drama with Alexander Ovechkin. Remember when Ovi broke, the record, we get it, you're good, Ovechkin. And Jordan Binnington took the puck and kind of put it into his pocket, like joking around. He was obviously joking. Well, some people did not think that it was a joke. We all knew it was a joke. And it was a fun joke. Jordan Binnington's like a troll in a way. And we love that about Binner. And that's what makes him so much fun. But people were really upset about it. And actually upset about it. Like, people were mad about this, which I personally don't get, because again, I didn't see anything necessarily wrong with it, but I guess there's some people that just don't like to have fun and want to complain about anything that involves Jordan Binnington, even though he is still one of the better goalies in the NHL. You know what? I said it once, I'll say it again. He's one of the best goalies in the NHL. The disrespect is real, and I do not agree whatsoever about that. We had some trade rumors about Brayden Schenn, and I said that trading Brayden Schenn would be stupid. It wouldn't make any sense. Not a fan of that. We had the Blues players who I spoke to. That is right. I was inside the Blues locker room, and I was able to recap you on kind of the vibe of the locker room and how the guys actually said it was positive. And I want to remind you that this is a team that's been struggling all season, but with guys like a Sonny and you know what, even a Tyler Tucker, because he has some personality, and a Joel Hofer, this locker room will be fine. The Blues continuously had overtime losses as they've now lost 7 in overtime / shootout, which is the second worst in the NHL because those Vegas Golden Knights take that number 1 spot. And it couldn't go to a more deserving team because we all hate the VGK. We also have the Blues, who finally defeated the New York Islanders. And why was that important? Well, it was because they were not doing well on that road trip. It was a 2-1 win. Alexander Texier had his contract terminated with the Blues and was picked up by the Canadiens. Also, Sammy Blais was picked up by the Canadiens, but he is with their AHL team. And for those that don't know, Sammy Blais, he was with, I believe, the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he was once a Blue, so that happened too. The Blues also had another contract termination, and that was with Lucic. His contract was terminated. There was also these rumors about Jordan Binnington potentially being traded to the Oilers for Stuart Skinner. Again, I don't think that's an even trade whatsoever. I know there's a lot that has been going on. The Blues had a big win against the Senators and most recently against the Mammoth. Again, this is the first time that the Blues had consecutive wins since the middle-ish of October. So that is your November recap. It was bad. Contract terminations, Dvorsky scoring, shout out Dvorsky. And hey, winning finally. The Blues get to say they won their last game in November, winning with 2 points. The Blues are still the 5th worst team in the NHL. They were the 3rd worst. Now they're the 5th worst. So we have gone up a little bit in progress when it comes to that. But overall, this month has showed us that this is a team that has good energy in the locker room. A team that, you know what, despite how they've been doing throughout the season, they are able to come together when it matters. And right now it matters because you're playing in front of your fan base. You spent 10 days on the road. It was a 10-day road trip. You come home, and so far, both of the games that you have played at home on home ice at Enterprise, you have won. And to me, that is a positive. This is a team that appreciates the fans. Every single player I spoke to in the locker room told me, in their own words, how much they appreciate the loyal fans that you are. Because at the end of the day, yes, you're wearing the blue note, which in itself is a huge honor. But you're also playing in front of loyal, passionate fans who want to see good things out of their hockey team. Coach Montgomery is finally pleased with how the guys are playing. And I know that at the trade deadline, they're going to most likely sell. I mean, at this point, you can't look at this team and think otherwise. But until then, you need to play your heart out. No team is going to purposely tank. I know I have said it. Tank for McKenna. Hashtag tank for McKenna. I've said it because as a fan, it is frustrating not seeing wins and seeing bad hockey. But Joel Hofer, who has had a really tough season, was able to get his 3rd win of this season against the Mammoth and a shutout win. And shutout wins are so big in this day and age in hockey. I was so happy for Joel Hofer. And I think overall, this is a team that builds off of momentum. Okay? I do believe that. Because again, we think about last season, the Blues had a 12-game win streak. And that was all off of momentum. And we're seeing a Dylan Holloway. By the way, Holloway was the lone goal scorer against the Mammoth. And we saw Hollywood Holloway having a great game. And he's been playing like himself again. We have seen, by the way, the lineup on defense change quite a bit with rotating in Mayu, Kessel. Oh, yeah, that was another one where Mayu got sent down and they brought him back up. Like, again, What's with Logan Mailloux? What are we doing here? And that's what I need to know. I think my goal for December, because I want to talk about goals, is I need consistency. If you say that you're going to play a certain player, then play him. If not, don't. That's fine. Again, not my decisions. But I need consistency because when you're telling the fan base you're going to do one thing as head coach, and yes, I'm talking about Coach Montgomery, and I respect Coach Montgomery, I need you to act on it and to do what is right, not just for the team, but for the fan base. At the end of the day, I willingly, by the way, I want to remind you, I willingly watch every single Blues game. Why is that? Because one, I love the Blues, and two, I do a podcast. But number one is because I love the Blues. And I feel like there is a part of me that wants more transparency of what's going on. Because when you're telling us as head coach, yeah, once we put Mailloux in, he's not coming out. And then literally the next game he comes out. As a fan, that confuses me. And I'm sure that confuses you too. It doesn't make much sense to me. And again, I respect, and I want to emphasize that I respect Coach Montgomery. I do. You know, when I asked him about Jake Neighbors, because Neighbors is back, that was another November update. I asked him about Neighbors, and he was able to give me an honest, transparent answer about how he felt like his game was in his first game back in Philadelphia. But I kind of feel like there is this, and I don't want to say lack of transparency, but I feel like maybe he's just not communicating effectively enough with the fan base. And I'm not coming at him. I respect him, as I stated. But if we're not going to play Logan Mailloux the way that we thought we were, I want to know that, because we did trade Zach Bolduc for him. And I know Bolduc hasn't had the best season. And I'm not saying that he would have been a game changer for the Blues team as a whole. I'm talking trade value. Zach Bolduc could have been a bigger asset when it comes to trading. So I feel like for me, that is the main purpose of why I would still have wanted him, because he's had NHL experience, right? He's played over 100 games prior to the start of this season. You know, he would be consistent at least on the third or fourth line. And the Blues could have traded him for a much better defenseman. So again, let me know your thoughts on exactly what you thought the Blues should have done. But that is where I am at. So no, I don't think it's a mistake to not put Mailloux in the lineup every night, because I don't think he should be. However, I kind of wish that Coach Montgomery was a little bit more transparent about his decision-making, only for the fact that I kind of wish that as a fan, I knew the direction the Blues were heading in with him. But I do understand in the sense that, hey, listen, not every player is going to work out the way that you thought they were going to work out, which is, again, fine as it is. So coming up, I have a conversation, and a really good conversation, a few weeks ago, and I felt like it was appropriate to wait until my end of the month recap, because I want you to hear where I was only a few weeks ago, halfway through the month, about the Blues and what I thought they could have done. They could have done better. They could have potentially changed up, and my expectations. And now that you heard this and you heard my end of the month thoughts, you can now hear my thoughts towards the beginning of the month. So this is again with Gil Martin from the Locked On podcast, but the NHL Locked On podcast. So take a listen. And again, my friends, I want you in the comments to let me know how you feel about the month of November. Take a listen.
It's been a rocky start for the St. Louis Blues, who are still seeking consistency. Haley Taylor-Simon of Locked On Blues joined us to discuss what it'll take to get back into the race, and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Also want to thank everyone for making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network. We couldn't have done it without you. Great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, and can't be thrilled with this start to the season. What's going on? This team can't seem to find stability and consistency.
Yeah, no, it's not good, Gil, in any single way. All the areas that I thought the Blues were going to excel in, it has been the complete opposite. What I can say, though, is that we are getting closer to maybe securing a top 5 draft pick if things tread in the right direction. Well, wrong direction, but that's the one positive that I can find, but it's been really rough. Even to be a fan of this team right now, it's been tough.
Is there a mindset that this maybe they should tank the rest of the season? I mean, they're never going to say they're going to tank, but is there a mindset that, hey, we need to tear this down and build this back up?
That would be my mindset, and that's what I would do. The issue is, in order to tank, you have to say goodbye to a few faces that have been a part of the organization for quite a while. And you can't tank without the inevitable trading away Braden Shen, trading away even Jordan Binnington. And you have to think about the key players that you want to build around. Now, personally, I would build around Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. However, knowing the Blues, they're going to end up making mistakes with how they tank. I mean, this offseason really should have showed the fans that this team was not set up for success. And as minor as this might sound, Gil, when they traded Zach Bolduc to the Canadiens and they acquired Logan Mailloux, I thought that was a bad trade to begin with. And while, yes, Bolduc, he's a third-line type of player, he hasn't put up that many points. That's not the reason why I'm so upset about this trade necessarily. It's the fact that you acquired a defenseman that's not NHL ready when you had an NHL ready forward. And again, the value of Logan Mailloux goes down. So even if you were to trade him, you wouldn't get much in return. With a Zach Bolduc, if you wanted to trade him in the future, you could have gotten a lot more out of him than just a Logan Mailloux. So my frustrations, I mean, it even can go with Fox, going away. And Nick Leddy, I'm fine with, by the way. Like, totally cool with that, putting him on waivers. But there's just so many frustrations with this team. So to answer your question, I would tank.
You mentioned Jordan Binnington. Defense and goaltending have been big problems for this team. Is this more on the defense? Is it more on Binnington? Is it a combination? And how do you fix it?
It's so easy to say it's just the goalie or it's just the defense. It's so easy to do that. The reality is it is a combination. And as much as I love Jordan Binnington and I defend him all the time, I was watching the Flyers game and it was so ugly. And Binnington wasn't making the saves that I usually see him making. And that's how it's been all season. So a part of me is like, hey, maybe something's going on with not even just Binnington, but Joel Hofer. But also the defense not playing well contributes to it. But I can't just blame the defense when at the end of the day, some of the goals that are let in are goals that would have been saved prior. So that's another concerning factor.
Now, Binnington has been streaky in the past. I mean, is this just a bad streak for him, or is there something more long-term to it?
That's a really good question. And I want to say that it's a streak. I really do. I think that if there is something long-term, then that's a real serious issue. And we're still under 20 games into the season. So I'm hoping that it is a streak. However, at the same time, again, if this continues on, then it's going to be a problem, especially with the Olympics coming up. I mean, right now, Binnington's projected to be the starting goalie for Team Canada. What's going to happen if he doesn't continue to play well? And I think there's so much at stake, even just besides the Blues, but just him as a goalie in his career. There's so much at stake that he needs to step it up.
Give me some good news for the St. Louis Blues, a player maybe who has exceeded expectations or just played really well for this team so far.
Jimmy Snuggerud. I mean, how can you not talk about Snuggy? Him and Dvorsky have been like my shining lights in the midst of all this darkness. I can't say enough good things about Snuggerud. I mean, he's such an elite player. He's only going to get better. And again, why is it that you have Snuggerud, who's a rookie, playing better than some of these veterans on the team? And that's the type of energy that this team needs. I think that the problem is, and I notice this a lot when teams kind of get into a dark path, and it's not even just the Blues, it's teams in general. They get too cautious when they play offensively. Instead of just taking those one-timers, they make too many passes. Snuggerud's not afraid to just take a one-timer. He is playing such good hockey right now, and he should be acknowledged for how well he is playing.
All right, you mentioned the possibility of some major trades coming down the pike. Who do you think they should be looking to deal, and what is the best time to make these moves?
Well, I think it's going to happen sooner than later from some of the sources out there that have been speculating. I think Braden Shen is a name. I would 100% look to trade him to a contending team. He does have 15 teams that he is, hey, I'm not going to you. So I think that you have to look at the teams that he does want to go to and see if you can get something out of it. Now, I would personally go for NHL-ready players that are maybe a little bit more developed, but if not, draft picks. You can never go wrong with draft capital because you can always trade those draft picks to move up in the draft. So that's always a value. Plus, with Braden Shen being in his later part of his career, to say it nicely, and a couple years left on his contract, you're not going to get that much value from him. So you definitely want to look to see what you can get the most out of. And draft picks, again, you can never go wrong with that. Even if you get like a 6-rounder, you can always package that in a deal. So that's what I always tell people. Never be upset about a draft pick. And again, he does have 15 teams that he's willing to. So you got to just work. I don't know who they are, but you have to work with that. Another name is Jordan Binnington. Now, you can get a lot of value out of Binnington. But again, it depends on how people might view how he's playing in a sense. As you said, is this just a streak or is this how he's going to be? So again, I can't even tell you a team because right now I could think of a lot of hockey teams that need a good goalie, like a lot. But I guess we'll see what the best offer is. But for him, you definitely could get a solid defenseman from him.
And besides picks, what does this team need to add to improve?
Defense. You need a good second pair. You need a good third pair. You know what? You could even improve on the first pair because right now I love Colton Parayko, but I get so frustrated, Gil, when I talk about this because Philip Broberg, he's just not playing the way that I want him to play. Cam Fowler hasn't showed me much this season. Justin Folk, we all know how I feel about him. If you don't know how I feel about him, I don't like him. Then we go to the third pair, which is Tyler Tucker, Matthew Kessel, and then they have Hunter Skinner that they called up. Like, it's just such a mess defensively. You need like a star defenseman. And you're not going to be a successful team without having that because right now this team, it lacks defense. I would take anybody, honestly. Like, and I know that sounds kind of sarcastic, but it's like the truth. I would take a fresh face rather than what we have in the system because Adam Juracek, he's still a couple years away from being ready. And I do project that he's going to be a really strong defensive player for the Blues. But until he's ready, you really need to get a new face in.
All right, Haley, it's going to be an interesting season in St. Louis, if not a difficult one. Yeah. So why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so if you want to see me crash out after every single Blues game, make sure to go to Twitter at Locked On Blues. And of course, if you want to see my daily episodes on the St. Louis Blues, make sure to check out Locked On Blues here on YouTube.
All right, Haley, thank you so much.
Thank you.